In this lesson, we're going to look at a different loop type, the for loop. The for loop does pretty much the same thing that the while loop does, just uses a little bit different syntax and format. So let's start off with a very simple example that I think will help you see how the for loop works. We're going to simply display the numbers 1 through 10. So here's how we're going to do that. The for loop starts off with the keyword for, followed by an open parenthesis. Then we create what's called our loop control variable, and we give it an initial value. So here I'm using I, which is kind of a common for loop variable to use, and I'm setting it to 1. So that's the initial value. Next, we provide a condition. In this case, I less than or equal to 10. That tells our for loop when to stop. Stop when the value of I becomes greater than 10. Then the last thing we do is we provide a modifying statement. In this case, an increment statement to increment I by 1. Again, we need the loop to stop at some point, and the only way to do that is to keep incrementing I past 1 to 10, and then when it gets to 11, then the condition I less than or equal to 10 is false, and the loop stops. We close all that off with another with a closing parenthesis. Then we open up the loop body with a curly brace. We're just going to print out each value of I, close the loop, and that's all we have to do. So the for loop is very, very concise. Everything we need to have to control the loop is right up at the beginning of the loop. So let's compile, then close, and let's run our code. And there's 1 through 10. So let's step through it manually and take a look. So again, we start I equal to 1. We test 1 less than or equal to 10. That's true. Then we write out the value of I. Then we increment I by 1. So then I is 2. We test the condition. The condition is true. Write out the value 2. Then increment I by 1 to 3. Continue on. Now let's go to 9. So now I is 9. 9 less than or equal to 10 is true. Write out 9. Increment I to 10. 10 less than equal to 10 is still true. So we write out I. Then we increment I to 11. 11 less than or equal to 10 is false, and so the loop stops. If we wanted to do something else, say like our multiplication example from the while loop lesson earlier, we can do that also using a for loop. So we'll set int product equal to 0. Then we're going to say for int I equal 1, I less than equal to, we'll just use hard numbers here, 5. So we're going to do 5 times 3 plus plus I product plus equal 3. And then write out the result. I'll just use it in lowercase. And there we go. So again, our loop control variable is I. We initially set it to 1. Our condition is I less than or equal to 5. As long as that's true, then the for loop will continue to do its work. And then we're going to increment I by 1. Let's compile, close, and then run our code. And the product is 15. Let's go back to the counting example real quick, and let's work backwards. This time we're going to decrement I and we're going to count backwards from 10 to 1. Just like that. Now let's move that over 1. Can't get it in the right place, but that's okay. There we go. So let's compile our code. And again, understand what we're going to do. Here we're starting I at 10, and while I is greater than or equal to 1, display I, and then decrement I by 1. So let's close and run. And there's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just like we thought. So to summarize, the for loop has an initial condition or initial value, a condition to test, and then a modifying statement. Notice how the first two parts, assigning the initial loop control value and the test, are all finished in semicolons. The modifying statement is not. This is kind of a quirk in how the syntax works. And then you have a for loop body, and inside the body can be whatever statements that you need to have. And that's all there is to do. And with that, we have demonstrated how to write and use for loops.